Hi, boys and girls. It's April Fool's Day, so of course, we have our Gilbert book that we read every day for whenever we have our holidays. So, April Fool, Watch Out at School by Diane DeGroat. I wonder if Gilbert's going to play a trick on somebody. Have you played any tricks yet today? There's Gilbert in his bed finding out it's April 1st. Gilbert woke up and looked at the calendar. It was April 1st, April Fool's Day. He hopped out of bed and started filling his backpack with tricks to play on his friends. His sister Lola peeked in the door and said, "Knock, knock." Gilbert answered, "Who's there?" "April Fool," Lola shouted. Gilbert laughed and explained, "You're supposed to play a trick on someone, not tell jokes." "Okay," Lola said. "Do a trick to me." But Gilbert didn't have time to play tricks on his little sister. He was already out the door. Gilbert met Patty on the corner. As they walked to school, Patty suddenly said, "Watch out, Gilbert, your shoe's untied." Gilbert stopped to tie his shoe, but it was already tied. "Gotcha," Patty said, "April Fool." Gilbert laughed. He couldn't wait to try that trick on someone else. Principal Pug smiled and waved when he saw them. "Morning good," he said. "Day nice to have." He was talking backward. The bell rang and Patty said to Gilbert, "Up hurry let's." Mrs. Bird was not smiling or waving. She said, "Put away your tricks so you can get started with our reading lesson. Gilbert, please start on page 10. Gilbert stood up and read out loud. "Where's my book?" Sam asked. "I need it now." Mrs. Bird stopped him and said, "When someone reads out loud, it would be nice to know where the punctuation marks are." Then she said, "Here's an idea. When you come to a period, say pop. And when you see quotation marks, say pfft. A question mark can be huh? And the exclamation point is a boing. Try it." Check out all the things that were wrong. Look at her book. She's got music notes in it. Oh, and look here, a fork. Gilbert took a deep breath and started over. "Pfft. Where is my book?" "Huh?" "Pfft," Sam asked. "Pop. Pfft. I need it now. Boing." "Whew," Gilbert said. "This is hard." Louis said, "And it sure is funny. Boing." Everyone laughed. Mrs. Bird laughed too and said, "Thank you for being such a good sport, Gilbert. April Fool." Gilbert sat down and made a loud pfft sound in his seat. "That wasn't me," he cried. "Somebody put a whoopee cushion there." "Gotcha," Louis said. Oh, poor Gilbert. He's the one getting all the tricks. They finished their reading silently, but Gilbert kept thinking pop and boing whenever he saw a period or an exclamation point. He also kept thinking about how he could play a trick on Louis. He had hot, spicy gum in his pocket, so he turned to Louis and asked, "Would you like a piece of gum, Louis?" "No way," Louis said. Later, Gilbert put a plastic spider on Louis's desk when he wasn't looking. "This is so fake," Louis said when he handed it back. Then he slapped Gilbert on the back and said, "Your tricks are the worst." But Gilbert wasn't giving up. He still had a few more tricks up his sleeve. He also had a sign on his back that said, "I smell." No wonder everyone was snickering as he walked into the cafeteria. "Louis," Gilbert grumbled. Look, Mars. Look at this little guy's outfit. Look, she's got her thing under her eyes. Before he ate, Gilbert checked his seat for a whoopee cushion. There was none. So he sat down and opened his lunchbox. Suddenly, he jumped out of his seat and yelled, "Ah!" There was a worm in his apple. "It's just a gummy worm," Patty said. And look, there's a note. The note said, April Fool. It was signed Mother. Gilbert couldn't believe it. Even his own mother had tricked him. At recess, Frank said, Watch out, Gilbert, there's a bee on your head. Gilbert swatted at his head while Frank laughed and said, April Fool. Margaret said, Watch out, Gilbert, your shoe's untied. Gilbert bent to tie his shoe. Made you look, Margaret said. Gilbert sighed. He couldn't believe that he had fallen for that trick twice in one day. Then Philip shouted, Watch out, Gilbert! But Gilbert wasn't going to get tricked again. He said, I'm not. And before he could finish, a kickball smacked him on the head. I told you to watch out, Philip said. I thought it was another trick. Ugh, Gilbert groaned as he rubbed his head. This is the worst April Fool's Day ever. Everybody's playing tricks on me, but I can't trick anyone. Told you your tricks were bad, Louis laughed. You'll never trick anyone. Gilbert said, That's what you think, Louis. I have one more trick that I've been saving just for you. Louis laughed again and said, What is it? I'm not telling you. You'll have to wait and see it. Gilbert whispered to Patty what his trick was. Patty said loudly, You're right, Gilbert. That's the best trick ever. Louis snorted and said, You'll never April Fool me. As they walked back into the classroom, Gilbert said, Oh, Louis, let me hold that door for you. Louis asked, Is this your trick? No, said Gilbert. He held the door open and Louis walked through, very quickly. During spelling, Louis couldn't find his eraser. Gilbert said, Here, Louis, you can borrow mine. Louis looked at the eraser and said, Is this a trick? No, Gilbert said. But Louis inspected the eraser very carefully before he used it. Gilbert was tricking him. During quiet time, I thought maybe I had a page there. During quiet time, Gilbert brought a book to Louis and said, I think you should read this, Louis. I really liked it. Louis wouldn't take the book. He said, Is it a fake book? Is it glued shut? Is it going to squirt me with water when I open it? No, Gilbert said. It's just a really good book. Louis took the book, but he couldn't concentrate on the story. He kept looking over his shoulder to see where Gilbert was. Look, there's some funny things happening in this picture. Things that are wrong. Louis was so busy watching out for Gilbert's trick, he didn't see Kenny put a fake spider on his desk. Louis screamed when he saw it. Gotcha, Kenny said. And when Patty told Louis his shoe was untied, he bent to tie it. Gotcha, Patty laughed. And when Louis sat on his own whoopee cushion and Margaret said, Gotcha, everyone laughed. And when the bell rang, Louis finally shouted, I give up, Gilbert. I can't stand it anymore. Do your trick already. Gilbert smiled and said, There isn't any trick, Louis. I just made you think there was. You got April fooled. Gotcha.